with Myrtle and Moss Photography. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my sparkler overlays for Photoshop. This is my version 2. These overlays have been the #1 best-selling sparkler overlays on Etsy for several years in a row, and because this has been highly requested, I finally released the second version, which includes so many more overlays than the first pack. It also includes all of the ones from the first pack. If you are a wedding photographer who is constantly shooting sparkler overlays, this is definitely a pack that you're going to want to get. Now, if you have already been using my overlays, you may notice that you are starting to reuse a lot of the same sparklers, and they may be showing up a little bit repetitive in your feed. So here we go. I have created an entire new pack for you. We have 105 individual sparklers. We also have 35 landscape bokeh overlays, as well as a pack of portrait orientation overlays for you. So let's go ahead and share with you how to get these applied to your image. I'm going to be editing this image from scratch, and because I always like to make a learning opportunity whenever I can, I did go ahead and pick a photo that was really grainy. Now, not all sparklers are created equal, and this was a cheap pack of sparklers apparently because they gave off virtually no light. So we ended up with some grainy photos. As you probably know, you don't really get a second chance to do your sparkler exits, especially on a real wedding day such as this. So because I know that I have my overlays and I know how to fix grainy photos, I wasn't really worried, and I just, tried to stay in the moment. So let's go ahead. We're going to edit this image. Now here you can see my settings up in the top left corner. We are at 250 shutter speed, which I don't normally like to go lower than that because my photos are going to be blurry. So that's kind of my limit no matter what I'm shooting, unless I'm intentionally taking a long exposure, or I'm using a tripod, which is very rare, or I'm making a point to stay very still when I'm taking the photo. But as you know, sparkler exits, they're busy, you're moving around. So this is the lowest I like to go. For f-stop 1.4, that is the lowest that my lens would go to. And ISO 5000, normally I shoot around 3200 for sparkler exits. So as you can see, even with my ISO bumped, it is still a pretty dark image. Now this is with the exposure bumped up too. So this is actually what I got straight out of camera. Let's go ahead and bump that up, and I'm just going to lower my temperature here a little bit more. Let's go ahead and apply my brand new Evoke 2.0 presets, which I'm also showcasing here today. If you have been using Evoke, it is a preset I came out with a very long time ago, but it is timeless. It has definitely stood the test of time. However, it has also been requested that I create a newer updated version that also includes AI features, which I've gone ahead and done. It is based off of Evoke, has the same kind of tones and undertones, and it will definitely flow with your work if you already use Evoke. However, it is a little bit more clean and true tone, which is kind of the trend of photography these days. So let's go ahead and apply that. So there we go. Now I'm going to increase contrast a little bit. Let's zoom in here. You can see it actually is very grainy, which is totally okay. We also like a little bit of grain. So let's just work with colors first and foremost. Let's go over here to Color Mixer, and let's bring down those blues. We don't really need those blues in the background. They are a little bit gray, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and apply a little bit of warmth to the background. As far as skin tones, I'm actually quite happy with that. I do want my highlights and my whites to be a little bit brighter, so let's go ahead and do that. I love me some good dehaze. Now my presets do have a bit of dehaze built into it. Okay, now we're going to go over here to filters, and if I was to click background, I don't know how well that's going to work. We can give it a shot here. There we go. That worked pretty darn good. Now let's just go and increase our temperature. So it's warming up the people. I'm kind of looking in these areas. I would like them to be quite a bit warmer, but I find that the faces are getting a little bit orange. So let's keep their faces about right there. Then we'll go ahead and just brush on another added layer here of warmth just to certain areas. And then I'm going to make my brush smaller. You can use your bracket keys to make it bigger and smaller. Okay, now let's go ahead and add some warmth. We're just going to go down here to temperature. If you want to move around your image without using your scroll bars, you can just hold space bar and move it. I learned that way too late in the game. Little tricks of the trade that, you learn as you go. That's why I like to share everything that I can whenever I can, because my goal is to save you guys time, because time is money. Now, one thing that I also like to do is get rid of any fringing. Now, I don't really have any in this image, but if you find that you're getting bright red and bright green rings around your sparklers that are previously existing in the image, you can go down here to lens corrections to manual. And then right here, you're gonna wanna bump your amount up to 2. 2 kind of max is what I like to do. Otherwise you start getting weird gray lines around their faces and lips. And then you take this slider over here and you turn it all the way to the right. Now, if your fringing is purple or red, you're gonna wanna use this one. If it is more in the green and blue tones, you're gonna want to do the same thing, but down here. Okay, now let's go ahead and fix this grain or touch it up just a little bit. I'm gonna scroll down here to the detail tab. If you're having a hard time finding any of these menus, they're often just hidden, so go ahead and just click that little drop down arrow. And then in this exact order, this is something that I learned a very long time ago from the Photoshop guru, Damien Simmons, if anybody knows him. So I don't want to take any credit for this, but this trick does work wonders, especially if you're not using any of the other retouching programs like Topaz Labs. That's a really good one if you find your images are really grainy. So we're going to increase our luminance to 100. Don't worry, we're not going to keep it like this. Just trust the process. And then we're going to decrease color to 0. Now this is what we call color noise that we're getting with our grain. Okay, so this is creating the color texture, and then the luminance is actually like the surface texture if you kind of think of them in 2 different layers. Now I'm going to increase my color until all of those little blocks, if we zoom in here, this is actually a really good example here. See these little pixel blocks? We're going to increase our color until those are pretty much gone. So there we go. So that's about good. Let's just zoom out a little bit. Perfect. So now we fixed the color noise. Now we're going to bring down our luminance until we're at a grain that we're happy with. So I'm actually completely okay with this being still grainy, but it's a tidier grain, if you want to put a word to it. I probably would have added a grain anyways on top of a sparkler exit image. So anything, higher than about 35, you're going to start getting them looking like dolls like this, like little plastic dolls. So I don't really want to bump it much more than 35 is kind of my limit for that. Okay, now whenever you're applying the sparkler overlays, you want to make sure that you are applying them to a completely edited image. That's kind of the last finishing touch that you're going to want to put on it. So just to compare the two here, let's go ahead and zoom in. We have nice skin tones. I'm actually really happy with that image. It's nice and clean. It's still warm because sparklers do give off a lot of warmth, but we're still, paying respect to their lovely skin tones. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to export this image. We're going to open it up in Photoshop. All right, so here we are in Photoshop. Let's go ahead and apply the sparkler overlays. Now go ahead and open the folder where the overlays are located. We're going to apply a bunch of individual sparklers here today. So we're going to open up our individual sparklers and we're going to have a look first at our image and just kind of looking at what is previously existing in this photo. Now we have some sparklers that are in focus right here. They're still a little bit blurry, but they're closer to the camera. They're closer to our subject, so they are more in focus. We get some of those actual sparkles showing up. And then the further we get away, you're gonna get them a little bit more blurry and more kind of like bokeh in the background. So we want a good mix, and in order to make these look really realistic, we wanna make sure that we're selecting the correct overlays. We don't want these to look fake. These are actual sparklers that I've captured, so there is nothing fake about them, but we don't really want our viewers to be picking them apart and having them take away from the image. All right, so let's go ahead and open up the individual sparklers. Now, they kind of go in order from blurry sparklers to more in focus down here at the bottom. I'm just going to make them bigger so we can see them. There we go. So these ones are all more so in focus. And then as we go up here towards the top, they're a little bit more blurry. Okay, now we're gonna start with the background layer first. We're gonna work back to front. Just because we are going to be layering them and we're going to be adding more sparklers as we go. Now, the closer the sparklers are to us, the bigger the bokeh is going to be. So we're going to start off just working in the background. So let's start off with the ones here behind her head. We can also see that there's some sticks sticking up here that don't have sparklers on them. They may be lower than her head or than his head, but we can't tell that as a viewer. So let's go ahead and we're going to add some extra ones up here. This is probably closer to the end of our sparklers for the evening. So let's go ahead. We're going to just drag and drop this one. Now these are just JPEGs. That's exactly what they're supposed to be. The magic happens when you run the action on them. I'm gonna go ahead and do that, drop it on, and it has black all around it. That's totally okay. Don't worry about it. Now we can apply multiple at one time as long as they're not overlapping. And I'll show you what I mean here in a minute. Let's drop this one. We're gonna make it a little bit smaller though. Here we go. Let's go maybe right there. Okay, those two aren't overlapping, so it's all right. Let's go ahead and add one right on top of here. Now that one's really small in the background, so we want to make sure that we make this one, you know, the correct size. So I'm gonna turn this around. Now I'm gonna drop it right here. But as you can see, the black is on her face, which is totally okay, but it is overlapping this one a bit and we're losing a little bit of the bokeh there. Now you can see here on the bottom right, we have all of our sparkler layers. And right now they're just smart objects. So if we do need to do anything to them, you can just right click and go rasterize layer, or it will give you a little warning pop-up such as this. If I wanted to say erase something off of here, it's going to say the smart object must be rasterized before proceeding. Edit contents will no longer be available. Rasterize the smart object. And we're just gonna go click OK. Now we wanna make sure we're selecting the right one. So this is the one we wanna work with. I'm just gonna drop my opacity down here just so I can see what's going on a little bit more. Now I'm gonna use my eraser tool. It is gonna be hard at 100%. Gonna lower my size a bit. We're at 100% up here, opacity. And I'm just gonna start erasing off of her head. There we go. So we had a little bit of sparklers there. And then this sparkler is also overlapping right there. So we're going to do that. We're gonna increase opacity back to 100%. And that's okay that that black is on her. It doesn't really matter. And let's go, we can probably add a in focus sparkler right here. So let's go down to ones that are in focus. It's in focus, but not like crazy in focus. Let's go something like, I think this one right here might be good. So we're just gonna drag and drop. Just gonna angle them in a little bit right there. All right. And you can see when I hide that layer that it is covering up one of the little sparkles up there, but that's okay. I'm all right with that. And let's just pretend that maybe there's another person right here. So let's go and select another overlay. Now it's gonna be pretty in focus as well. So let's go something like maybe like this, in focus, but also not. Let's add it right there. Now, once again, we want to erase some of this that's on her face. Now, if it was really close to us, it would make sense to have a little bit overlapping our clients because, you know, the sparkles in front of them, but we don't want it looking like there's any sparkles actually going onto them. It's gonna draw away from your image and make people ask questions and wonder why they're not on fire. So let's go ahead. We're gonna drop our opacity down of that layer and I'm going to erase. I just have my eraser tool selected. I'm just going to OK that and erase any of this that's on her or on her hair. So just want to make sure that if you are erasing anything, I don't really need to erase that, but that's okay. But if you are erasing anything, make sure that you're keeping all of your circles still very circular. You don't want to be going like that. Otherwise, that's definitely going to be looking like some Photoshop action there. So Control Z to undo that. We'll increase our opacity once again. There we go. Now you're like, what the heck is going on? Let's go ahead and join all of these layers. So I'm going to hold Shift and I'm going to select all of my sparkler layers, not our background. And I'm going to right click and go merge layers. Now if we hide, now you can see that these sparkles are all just one layer now. So we want to make sure that our sparkler layer is selected. We're going to go down here to the actions panel. If it's not showing up on yours, just go to window, make sure that your actions is selected here. Now, if you need to load your action that the sparklers came with, you can select the little 3 dots up here and go to load actions, and wherever you save the action is where you're going to go ahead and locate that. So once you have it installed into Photoshop, they will automatically pop up here under Myrtle and Moss Sparklers. I'm going to go ahead and click it, and then down here there's a little play button, so let's go ahead and press that and just let it do its thing. Okay, so you can see that they're no longer have the black background on them. They are now like smart objects. If we want to change the color of them to match the rest of our photo, then we're definitely going to want to go ahead and do that. So what you want to do is go down here to the hue saturation layer that is all built into the action. We're going to double click that and it'll bring up this menu. It may bring a pop-up right here instead, but it might be over here in your panel. Depends how you have your Photoshop set up. We're going to increase saturation quite intense just for the time being so that we can make it match the tones of our photo. So we're kind of on the more red side of things here. So I think that is good, but now we're going to suck back down the saturation to something kind of like that. I like a nice clean sparkler that's very white and bright. So I don't want too much color. So that should be good. Now I'm going to go ahead, now that I'm happy with that, I'm going to right click my bottom layer, which it does rename to Sparkler Action. And we're just going to go flatten image. There we go. Okay, so now we can go ahead and actually add a few more back here if we want, because we do have room and it would make sense that there's more back here. All right, so let's select this one. This one's looking good to me. We kind of have to match the size of the bokeh with other sparklers that would be in the same kind of plane. So that should be good right there. Now we're gonna wanna add some in the foreground. So let's select some that are a little bit more big and overlapped like this. The closer the sparklers are to the camera, the more overlapping of the bokeh balls, let's call them, there's gonna be. So we wanna keep it nice and realistic. So let's go maybe a little bit like that. You can see that there's actually some right there that are naturally existing. Let's go, I think that should be good like that. And we'll add some more over on the other side. So let's select this one right here, make it bigger. These balls need to match those balls, unless they're a little bit closer to us. I think that should be good like that. Now what you can also do is I do have overlays, which I'll show you in a second, which are full kind of bokeh overlays that are easy to add. You're going to want to use these in conjunction with the individual sparklers just to really make it all tie together and not just look like an overlay. But we're kind of doing that manually right now by changing the size of these sparklers. So I think that's good. Just make sure that you are joining all of those sparkler layers. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to hold shift and click all 3 of those layers that we've just added and go merge layers. And then once again, same thing, just run that sparkler action like that, does its thing. And then we increase our saturation and then change our color to about there. That's good. And then decrease saturation. All right, I think I'm pretty happy with that. Right now, before we finish up here, I do just want to share with you how to use the landscape and portrait orientation overlays as well, which can definitely save some time. So let's go, and because this image is portrait orientation, I'm gonna go ahead and select that. Now let's pick one that's going to make sense for our scene. Because we already have a lot of sparklers going on, let's keep it pretty minimal. So let's go ahead and select maybe this one right here. And you essentially just drag and drop it to the size of your image. You can also drag it beyond as well if you want it to be even a little bit more minimal. But I think that that is good. Go ahead and click enter. I'm just gonna quickly double check with my opacity that it's looking like I want it to, which I think it is. So I'll put it back to 100%. And then go down and run our sparkler overlay once again. There we go. And then just run our saturation layer once again to match. That is probably good. Beautiful. Okay, so now that I'm done with that, there is one last thing that I like to do to my images once I'm completely finished, and that is to add another grain layer over top just to smooth everything, especially if you already have grain on your image. We want to make sure that if our clients are zoomed in on our image, it's looking real, because if there was grain on our clients, there's going to be grain on the sparklers too. So let's go ahead and go filter, camera raw filter. This is my favorite way to add grain. And then we're going to just increase our grain here to about, I don't like to go more than 40 usually on an image. I love a good grain on a sparkler images though. And then you can play around with size and roughness if you want as well, but that's good for me. All right, now I lied because I said that was the last thing I want to do. I always love converting my sparkler exits into black and white as well. There's something so timeless about it. So I'm going to go ahead and save this image. Control S. Perfect. Now I'm going to just go ahead and run my black and white action. There we go. All right, there we have it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to tag me so I can see your images, I would absolutely love that. My Instagram is myrtleandmoss.com. Thank you so much for the support, and I hope that this was helpful. Take care, guys.